The Al-Qaeda groups, of course, celebrate their barbarities. I think you were saying that's part of their trademark. I think that international law does mean something. And the point Mícheál made about the war of aggression is the mother of all war crimes, the fundamental war crime. That's important not to be lost sight of in the war on Yemen. Under that, there are conventions of war, of how war is meant to be fought, and to do with the not involving civilians, for example, not attacking essential infrastructure, as you mentioned, Ali, those sorts of things. Now, in terms of enforcement of that, there's no easy mechanism, but there's other reasons why those conventions are important, I believe. I mean, the enforcement issue depends on countries being subscribed to those conventions, or a referral by the Security Council, which is difficult because, as has already been pointed out, we've got 3 members of the permanent members of the Security Council engage in backing the Saud family in this war, and so therefore the chances of that are not moving ahead. Just as, in a sense, in Syria, they can't move against Syria at the Syrian government because the Russians and the Chinese won't allow them there. So in a sense, there's a stalemate in terms of that sort of enforcement. But as standards, as norms, as moral pressures in the international stage, international law remains important. And so it is important when you identify warring parties that are attacking hospitals, that are attacking water supply, those sorts of things. I believe international law remains important because we human beings are moral creatures, and we see these sorts of things and react to those moral situations and withdraw or confer legitimacy on conflict. So in that sense, I think the publicity, the discussion of war crimes in the conflict in Yemen in any conflict is very important because it does affect the legitimacy of those sorts of operations. So the problem is, as we're saying, in the case of Saudi Arabia, it's not really a nation in a normal sense of the word. It doesn't have any sorts of mechanisms of accountability or election, or council elections, I think. But really there are no normal internal processes there. I mean, if there were to be some serious change of regime in Saudi Arabia, it would have to be through a military coup. Really. That's the future in Saudi Arabia, because people aren't allowed to organise politically in opposition groups and stand for election and so on. But internationally, I think international law remains important because those sorts of questions, precisely the questions that you're raising now, are things that human beings respond to and think are important, and ultimately will look for some form of accountability for the criminals that carry out these sorts of acts.
Okay, thank you so very much for your explanation.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay. Well, this issue is going to be a serious issue. I mean, the Yemen, and it's getting so long. We have Syria, we have Yemen, we have Iraq, and all of them are basically being, the source of all of this violence comes from basically one place, and it would be very, very important to at least predict what will happen after that, what will happen after this war. So even that would be interesting, and that would be important if you also give some kind of, each one of you, give some kind of prediction or anything that you can guess that would happen after these, series of war that happens in the Middle East. And basically, and specifically, we talked about Yemen. So what will happen after that? And also, I will have a question. I will ask later, inshallah. But this would be also our view too. Sorry, you can keep on.
Okay, did you ask anything, Ali?
No, I didn't. Chris, you can also, if you like, you can answer my question about the previous one.
What will happen?
No, the previous one.
The previous
Yes,
one?
about all the, unconventional and forbidden things that happens
The
in this war.
laws of war.
Yeah,
Well, first of all, it's hard to get the United Nations attention over Saudi Arabia's crimes in Yemen. As you all know, last year Saudi Arabia, backed by Britain, became chair member of the Human Rights
that's
Council.
right.
And even then, no war is a good war. And even then, Saudi Arabia isn't abiding by the conventional laws of war. I mean, you either have cases of collateral damage or a policy that intentionally, indiscriminately kills people. And I have a friend from Sana'a, and he just told me today that 90 people were killed from an airstrike in a market.
Yeah.
I mean, based on the conventional laws of war, what is the strategic background in this? These people weren't even fighters. They claim the war is against.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And Mícheál, what is your idea about that?
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Well, Ali, I think that there is a possibility, if remote and slim at the present, but like with Israel in relation to Gaza, there are certain nation states and leaders who said they would back the arrest of certain officials from the Zionist state, and I think that would be the best hope if certain people were to take such an attitude towards Salman and the Saudi princes, and that is the only way I can see them ending up in front of the International Criminal Court at Den Haag in the Netherlands, and that is the very slim hope that the people of Yemen have, because, as Chris said, there's been indiscriminate explosives targeting towards civilians. There's been arbitrary executions, and as Tim said, it was the Saudis who invaded, so that's the war of aggression right there. And basically, Salman is just as guilty for the war crimes in Yemen, along with Cameron and Obama, as Tchaikovsky is for the war crimes in Palestine. And to add that, as Tim and Chris have referred to, Salman's also guilty of war, and yourself, Ali and Fatima, have referred to. Basically, Salman is guilty of war crimes in Syria, Kurdistan, and Iraq. Let's not ignore that while we're addressing this issue. And that would be my statement to that question.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And for the next question, why the Saudi Arabia didn't follow the ceasefire even the time when their own country had announced it? Tim, could you please answer this question?
I think ceasefires are really strategically positioning mechanisms, and the Saudis have been on the back foot for some months in Yemen, and I don't really, you wouldn't really trust them to weaken their position. As a war goes on, a ceasefire is seen as an opportunity or an obstacle, and clearly they saw it as an obstacle and haven't respected it there. In many respects, you could say something similar about Syria at the moment, where there's a wider group that of also all of the armed groups there are not really included in the ceasefire in any case, because of course, and the same thing applies in Yemen, that as I understand it, the ceasefire there doesn't apply to Al-Qaeda.
There is a saying that Saudi Arabia has actually destroyed almost everything in Yemen concerning the fundamentals and infrastructures and everything. And they say that even if Saudi Arabia fail in this war and Houthis just get the power, even in that case, the Houthis and Yemeni people are doomed to fail again because they don't have anything left, and Saudi Arabia has destroyed everything.